Hello and welcome back. My name is Michael Dwan Herrick. I'm a psychotherapist and a life coach in private practice in London. This is part 3 of my series on life, telos, and addiction. If you made it this far, I really appreciate your engagement, and I hope these reflections have been resonating with you. If you haven't watched parts 1 and 2 of this series, I recommend that you watch them before this one. What I'm about to say in this video will make a lot more sense if you do. In this final part, we'll turn our attention to the path forward, to recovery. I'm not going to offer a step-by-step set of instructions. What I'm going to offer is a description of the foundational orientations that make sustainable recovery possible. So far, we've explored how addiction hijacks our pursuit of pleasure and how our avoidance of pain drives us further out of alignment. My basic point in the first 2 videos was that recovery requires sorting out our relationship to both pleasure and pain. Instead of simply pursuing pleasure for its own sake or avoiding pain, we need to understand how these experiences serve us. We can see that pleasure is life's reward for our full participation in its purposes. We also see pain as either a signal calling us to respond by taking care of ourselves or an existential reality that we need to accept. It's not something to simply blot out or avoid. Again, I go into more depth about this in the first 2 videos. Now we can ask, how can we find our way back from addiction? Basically, recovery is about learning to live differently. The reference point for what that looks like is our sense of purpose. We each need to discover our life purpose. We need to ask, what is more important than pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain? While this is different for everyone, my argument has been that it needs to be rooted in life telos. If the first purpose of life is to survive, then our own survival and thriving ought to be our motivation. It means being healthy and living a long life. Single-celled organisms accomplish this in very similar ways to each other. Human beings have to think about it and choose from a great range of options. In service to our survival, life also requires that human beings bond and collaborate with others and make a social contribution. For many, this can also mean having children, a deeply telos-aligned act that brings both pain and profound meaning. But one way or another, it involves cultivating relationships and being a contributing member of a community. We will all choose to pursue these basic purposes differently, but we are each called to give this our attention and effort. Accomplishing these goals can be difficult and involve discomfort and pain, sometimes even trauma. That's why we develop addictions, to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. So, what do we need to do to not get hooked by an addiction? I propose that we need to cultivate 3 core capacities. I call them challenges in the last video. Delayed gratification, distress tolerance, and mood-independent behavior. These need to be explained and described in the context of having a purpose that includes goals and values. Delayed gratification is the ability to postpone immediate pleasure in service of a longer-term goal. It's not about denying yourself pleasure, but about trusting that some rewards are richer when earned over time. If your goal is to repair a relationship, write a book, or become healthier, you may have to resist urges that offer momentary satisfaction but undermine those deeper aims. Distress tolerance is the capacity to stay present with uncomfortable emotions without trying to escape them impulsively. Life includes pain. Recovery includes pain. Building this capacity allows us to ride out the waves of anxiety, boredom, sadness, or longing without collapsing or running. It means understanding that discomfort is not danger and that you can survive it. Mood-independent behavior is the ability to act in alignment with your values even when your mood doesn't support it. If you only act when you feel like it, you remain at the mercy of your emotional weather. Mood-independent action says, I may not feel motivated right now, but this is the kind of person I want to be. These are the psychological muscles that addiction bypasses. Recovery means slowly building them back, often in small, humble ways. A few concrete examples of this: delayed gratification, choosing to cook a simple meal instead of ordering fast food, waiting to respond to a text until after you've calmed down. Distress tolerance, sitting with anxiety for 10 minutes instead of numbing it with scrolling, snacking, or drinking, taking a walk instead of yelling when feeling triggered, and mood-independent behavior. Example: going to a recovery meeting even when you feel hopeless, showing up for a friend even when you're feeling low. None of these are glamorous, but they're revolutionary, because every time we exercise these capacities and act in accordance with Telos instead of seeking immediate pleasure or avoidance of pain, we're literally rewiring our brain. We're choosing alignment with life. This is not a straight path. It's not clean. We will have relapses and setbacks. It's not immediate, but it's possible. And over time, it becomes the new normal. We can increasingly feel a deep sense of connection to the meaning and purpose of our life. One of the biggest reasons people relapse is that they've removed the addiction but haven't replaced it with anything compelling. We need a direction that gives context to our efforts, something that helps us answer the question, why am I doing this hard thing? What is all this discomfort for? When people in recovery begin to connect with a deeper purpose, whether it's parenting, a job or career, creativity, service, spirituality, or building something meaningful, they begin to move towards something, not just away from pain. And that's what sustains change. Now I want to talk about the return of joy, play, beauty, and reconnection. It might not seem obvious in a conversation about recovery that play is part of it. At first glance, play doesn't seem essential. It's not aimed at survival, obviously, reproduction, or necessarily even bonding in any direct way. But when we observe children and juvenile animals, we see that play serves a vital purpose. It helps develop motor skills, social attunement, emotional regulation, and cognitive flexibility. When it comes to playing games with others, it's about learning how to follow the rules, make the game possible, which is an essential skill for social living. More interestingly, some adult animals, like dolphins, whales, elephants, dogs, certain birds, and of course humans, continue to play into adulthood. But they only do this when they feel safe, connected, and resourced. Play emerges when life has room. It's what life does when it has enough. This might be part of what we mean by when we say thriving. In that sense, play may not be a distraction from Telos. It may be a sign that we're aligned with it, that we're no longer just surviving, but thriving, that life is, at last, expressing itself in freedom. But we also need to acknowledge that addiction can masquerade as play. Many addictive behaviors begin as a form of fun or relaxation. Video games, sex, shopping, social media, but over time they become compulsive. They start consuming more of our time, attention, and vitality. What once was playful becomes isolating. Addictions often mimic play while quietly undermining our capacity for growth, relationship, and contribution. They become the default way of avoiding discomfort and neglecting the very capacities we need to build: delayed gratification, distress tolerance, and mood-independent behavior. Unlike addiction, play, at its best, is not compulsive. It's not about escape. It doesn't numb us or isolate us. It enlivens us, connects us, and strengthens us. It may look purposeless, but it's full of vitality. It doesn't hijack the reward system. It celebrates it. This is why I believe that recovery includes a rediscovery of joy. This can be found in many things: music, nature, creativity, movement, humor, These are not indulgences. They are signs of life returning, signs of a nervous system that's healing. Recovery is not the end of pleasure. It's the reintegration of pleasure into a life that makes sense. And there's a social dimension to recovery. We don't heal in isolation. Recovery is supported, sometimes made possible by relationship. This includes formal support like therapy or recovery groups, but also everyday connections, a friend who checks in, a partner who stays present, a community that sees the person, not just the pattern. But in addition to those who provide support for our recovery, there are those who need us. Recovery is also about taking responsibility for ourselves well enough to be a benefit and not just a burden on others. It means taking responsibility and being accountable for our impact on the lives of others, whether positive or negative. This doesn't come from some moralistic sense of duty. It's a practical reality. It comes from recognizing that this is our deeper purpose. It's built into our DNA, and we can embrace it with a sense of joy. Human beings are co-regulating creatures. As Stephen Porges, originator of polyvagal theory, reminds us, our nervous systems respond to cues of safety and connection. One of the most powerful cues? Another person who is regulated, attuned, and available. We can receive that from others as well as offer it. Recovery in this sense isn't just about self-control. It's about being accompanied, witnessed, believed in, connected. So recovery includes our joyful participation in life, but learning to live differently takes time because neuroplasticity takes time. New neural pathways require repetition. At first, these new behaviors won't feel joyful or rewarding. They may even feel empty or uncomfortable. But over time, they become more natural and eventually more satisfying than the old patterns. There will be setbacks. That's part of change. Recovery doesn't mean never slipping. It means having a direction you return to, even when you lose your way. It means seeing missteps not as failure, but as feedback. It means remembering that growth doesn't look like a straight line. It looks like a spiral, circling ever closer to alignment with life. So if you've struggled with addiction or are supporting someone who has, I want to say this. Recovery is not just about becoming functional. It's about becoming whole. It's not just about cutting things out. It's about making space for something better. Not all pleasures are misaligned. Some pleasures deepen our sense of being alive. Some pleasures reinforce connection, purpose, and meaning. Joy is not the opposite of recovery. It's a sign of it. And maybe that's the final signal that we're back in alignment. We begin to experience a kind of joy that doesn't come from escape or relief, but from participation in life. All right, there's one last thing I need to say, and I want you to listen closely. Over the course of 3 videos now, I've laid out my thinking about addictions and overcoming them. I hope this has been helpful to you and useful, but don't hold it all too tightly. Life is complex. We all pursue pleasure and avoid pain in our own ways, large and small. My point isn't that we should all become hyper-vigilant and constantly police every little detail of our lives to make sure we are in perfect alignment with life telos. I believe it's about proportion. I think it is wise to gently discipline ourselves to move in the direction of greater alignment over time. As Socrates has said, quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Okay, examine yourself and your habits. But I've heard this saying balanced with another saying that goes like this: the unlived life is not worth examining. If we become preoccupied with scrutinizing every little detail and habit of our life with the ambition to become a perfect person, we will constrict rather than expand our participation in life. Better to move between reflection and participation, like the rhythm of breathing, gently returning to what matters and letting life move through us. That's all for now. thank you for being part of this series. I hope it's given you more than just information. I hope it's offered insight, resonance, and maybe even a sense of direction. If you found this helpful, feel free to share it with someone who might benefit. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye for now.